All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. My name is Inam. I will be your host for the day. Welcome to we're calling all female founders. Of course, the theme for this day's event is unlocking the funding you deserve. Welcome to the masterclass today, where investment readiness for female founders is the topic of discussion. My name is Inam. I will be your host for today. I would like to welcome everybody. Thank you for keeping to time. Thank you for honoring this invitation. We trust that in the celebration of Women's Month, that these are the kind of conversations that we as women would like to come and to discuss. I also like to mention very quickly that today's event is done by Apollo Global. And of course, before I go into exactly what Apollo Global is all about, I'd like to first welcome to the front, or to the screen rather, because we are virtual, Mrs. Isioma Udwezo. She's the CEO of Apollo Global Innovation. I don't know if we're going to give a round of applause or just we're going to like tap all the emojis
well,
there.
that's fine. Thank you.
Go ahead, Isioma.
Okay, good morning, ladies, and the few gentlemen that have joined us today. Thank you so much for joining and for joining early as well. I'm so excited, and I think that, being here as female founders, entrepreneurs, SMEs, whatever stage you are in your business setup, the fact that you're here today, you have taken the right step and a bold step in the right direction to accelerate your business. And in line with Women's Month and the theme being Accelerate Now, I also thought it would be great to gather like-minded women, amazing women, to come and discuss and hear from experts about investment readiness. We all know that there's a funding gap, and research has shown that there's a huge gap, and it's about 80% between the probability of a man getting, or a male founder getting funding, and a female founder getting funding. And this statistics has shown that it has been on a steady decline over the last few years. Again, I don't want to blow anybody's mind with the statistics. I just think that it's time to start to act, and the time is now. So we're accelerating action by doing our best to support women. And this is one of the things that, we've decided to do. So in terms of Apollo Global as a business, we're an innovation enabler, first of all, but we're also an incubator and accelerator for startups. So not just female startups, we do startups in general. This is a special program in line with the theme of the month and the times that we're in as well, and for the reasons that I already said. And what we do, we support businesses from idea stage to growth stage. So if you have an idea, we're happy to have conversations with you about how we can help put structures around your idea, support you in making sure that that idea becomes a business, support you in your product development or fine-tuning your services, putting the structures, like I said, legal, your books, accounting, everything, and then supporting you also to taking your products or service to the market. And then when you also get to the stage where you're ready to raise funding, we also support you. We're developing an investment fund called the Apollo Global Innovation Fund. And we also do a lot of supporting as well. We have 10 innovation hubs across Nigeria. 7 of them are embedded on university campuses. We have Ife, UI, UniOSU, Rivers State University, Bayero University in Kano. We have the Article 1 in ATBU, in Bauchi, and we have UniBen as well. And now what this helps is we're very close to raw talents, and ideas, and we constantly do hackathons so that we can harness these ideas and, like I said, take them through the journey of developing them as businesses and supporting them to also grow and scale. Now, We also do something interesting. Now, the fact that we're on university campuses is that we have access to researchers. So you'll find that a lot of our professors and doctors in universities have amazing ideas. And, we have put structures also in place to support them in their commercialization journey. So we have, for example, a professor in our ecosystem who has developed smart dustbins, right? But, doesn't know how to take the product that she's developed from there to markets. And that's where we come in as a business. At all our innovation hubs, we have workspaces. So we encourage startups to come in there and work for a very reduced fee. But what we also do, we have a special program in Lagos, if you're in Lagos, supported by LSETF, where we can provide you with vouchers, right? So that you can work out of any of our dedicated workspaces in Lagos as well. So if you're interested in being on that program, please reach out on, I think we can drop an email address, Esther, in the chat, and then you can send us an email. You have free internet or Wi-Fi. You have your space to work out of if you don't want to work out of home. And these are some of the ways that we continually support startups within our ecosystem. So I don't want to bore anyone or talk too much. I think that's us about Apollo, and I'm happy to answer any questions towards the end. I will pass it back to Inam, our gracious host, who's originally South African, but I gave her the name Ngozi, so she's now Ngozi to everybody. And she would take us through the rest of the program. We have some exciting founders here today who are going to tell us about our journey, and we have experts who will take us through the masterclass as well. And we hope that, towards the end, when we go through telling the proper story about your business, which is very important. I think that we don't do enough about telling all the amazing things we do and where we want to go to. That's very important when you're going to raise money, when you're talking to investors, when you're talking to clients, when you're talking to anyone. And we'll also have a few minutes with an expert telling us the key elements of telling a good story. So thank you, everyone, again. Welcome, and please have a great one. Thank you. Ngozi, you're on mute.
When it comes to virtual. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in attendance, for making the time to be at the masterclass today. So not going to waste too much time. Let's stay with the agenda. And then, of course, with that, I want to welcome and introduce our first discussion, which is a fireside chat today. The theme for this fireside chat is tagged Lessons from Female Founders. I know Isioma did say that we do have a few gentlemen in the house, so we've not left you out. But I think today will be one of those where they say women are the ones that run the world. So allow yourself to be a little bit informed and educated by women today. So again, the first fireside chat for the day is tagged Lessons from Female Founders. And this fireside chat is going to be taken, or I would like to welcome the co-founders of Cargo Plug. And before I just welcome them in, I just want to give us a bit of a background history of what Cargo Plug is. And then, of course, I'll let them come in and they just tell us about the journey. So Cargo Plug is a logistics firm that specializes in seamless connections. And these connections are connections that ensure efficient and smooth transformation and distribution of goods. I think the insight, or one of the questions that I do have when I do come in, is just to understand how Cargo Plug went from Jada to Gidi and then became Cargo Plug. So before I do that, I'll just please want to welcome the co-founders of Cargo Plug. I want to welcome Miss Ujama Akpata, and then of course her co-founder Kiki Lomo Fola Ogunia. I hope they're here.
Hello. Yeah, we're here.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Inam. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hi, Inam, aka Ngozi. Hi.
Thank you so
Hi,
much.
everyone.
I think what stood out for me was two women co-founders, and I think I'm going to ask the questions later to say, is this like a friendship, besties that came together and said, let's make money together, or what it is? But I think very briefly, I'll just allow you to do a quick introduction about yourselves as individuals, and then we'll just hop right into the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with my co-founder Ujama. My name is Kike Lomo, and co-founders of Cargo Plug. I'm a lawyer by profession, and I've obviously transitioned into entrepreneurship in logistics. I think you've already introduced Cargo Plug, so I'll hand over to Amma as well to introduce herself.
Okay, hi. My name is Ujama Akpata. I'm a former chemical engineer by profession turned logistics entrepreneur. Nice to meet everyone.
All right, thank you so much. So I think, Ujama, tell us about it. Tell us about your business journey. How did Cargo Plug go from being Jada to Giddy to becoming Cargo Plug? Can you give us a bit of a background around the business and how it has, the journey, how it's been, and where you are now as Cargo Plug?
Okay, so it's actually pronounced Jand. It used to be called Jand to Giddy. So Jand to Giddy means, in Nigerian slang, Jand means the UK, Giddy means Lagos, Nigeria. And it started off in 2013. Kike and I both schooled in the UK, returned to Nigeria, and we struggled to bring things in. So it was either we were looking for a traveling relative to bring in things from the UK high streets. Now, we didn't have big weights. We were just looking for cosmetics or just clothing items. And it was too expensive, there were additional duties, or it just was, there was a minimum weight that we just couldn't meet because we just wanted really small items. So we decided to solve the problem for ourselves, and we found out that there was a bigger business behind it. So there were other customers that needed that service, people that had returned to Nigeria, people that were in Nigeria and just wanted to shop from the UK but had the same struggles we had. And that was how the business started 12 years ago, actually, as Jan to Giddy. Now, over time, we found out that there were needs for other countries. So the US came up, people asked us about the US, the demand grew for the US, for Canada, for China, and we started offering the services. We even started doing local deliveries and export services. So we found that the name was very limiting. We had always known that, and that the name was limiting. So we knew that we had to change the name. So at our 10th year anniversary, we decided that that would be the best time to relaunch the business as Cargo Plug. And Cargo Plug just meaning that we are your plug for any cargo you want to bring in, from the smallest item to containers. We do air freight, we do sea freight. We were trying not to lose out on customers. And also, we also transitioned from being primarily focused on B2C, the B2C market, to now being more B2B inclined. So being able to offer our logistics services and shipping APIs to businesses, global businesses looking to ship to Nigeria, African businesses in the UK and abroad, also looking to ship to Nigeria, give them a seamless solution. So that's basically where we started from, where we are now. We recently opened an office in our own self-run office in the UK, and we plan to just continue expanding over the next few years.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think that's brilliant, actually. Congratulations, especially on the expansion to the UK. I think one of the questions that every young founder or entrepreneur would find, especially when you're talking from a logistical standpoint, are some of the challenges that you might have faced when building a logistics company and a company as women. I know that when it comes to pitching as well, you would have to do a few pitches to men that might not want to buy into the vision. So I think my biggest question is that when it comes to pitching and the challenges that you faced, what are some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you come out of those challenges? I think I'll give this one to Kike Lomo.
Okay. Thank you, Nam. So yeah, challenges have been, in fact, from day one, we had challenges. I think even understanding how to pitch your business, I think having a good product alone we found that isn't good enough. It's not the only thing that investors want. They want a business that they'll be able to get return on investment, and it's about how you sell your story. So the kind of challenges we had, I think, at the beginning, first of all, in fact, we were first of all scared of even giving our business away. We had offers in early days for investors, but we turned them down because just us, please, we don't want to lose our business. And of course, that was a wrong move. Well, we know better now. That obviously it's better to own 1% of a higher valued company than 100% of a low valued company. So some of the challenges we faced was just the confidence of being able to sell, being able to tell our story, and know that regardless of your gender, you actually have a product and you have a real business. So I think some of the challenges were just not being sure of how to sell the story, but of course we then had to get into things like accelerators, learn from others, have mentors that would teach us exactly how to pitch, how to sell the business, and how to sell the key things that investors are looking for. I should add that we're still on that journey to securing the huge funding that we need. But while we're making the journey there, we still obviously put out our business and have a fantastic pitch deck. I think another challenge was knowing our numbers, knowing the kinds of numbers investors are looking at. So, for example, they will want to know how much do you spend on ads, for example, how much do you spend on acquiring customers? And when you acquire that customer, how long, what's the lifetime value of that customer? How long is that customer going to stay with you? If you acquired a customer for, say, $5, for example, how much are you exactly going to get from this customer? And then how long will you be able to get this amount from this customer? And let's just know how long the value, how valuable the customer is to your business. And then you're also measuring retention rates, measuring growth, month-on-month growth, and just knowing those numbers at the fingers of your tip. Someone like me, I'm a lawyer, I don't like numbers, but I realize that these are numbers I need to know. Revenue from 2013, they can ask you in 2025, what was your revenue in 2014? You can't be stuttering, So just knowing your numbers, knowing exactly what investors are looking for. What other challenge? I think that those are some of the challenges we face, just being scared. Now we know better, knowing numbers, being able to have our records in place. Thankfully, we were able to do that from the beginning. We had someone who helped us with getting our numbers in place. And that's one key thing, having your revenues, your expenditure, and having a proper record for investors to look at.
Okay, wow, all right, thank you so much. Numbers, lifetime value as well. But there was something that you said there that said having a good product alone is not enough. So I think with that being said, I think my next question to either of the two is when it comes to your product, because I know that now when we talk about business, every now and again, when you sit and you have these conversations, there's always this one word that always comes up, which is the ability to pivot and knowing when to pivot, especially when you are trying to gauge how good your product is. So how have you as a team been able to stay true to your vision and not adapt your vision because sometimes it's slow or the investments or the pitching is not exactly going in the way that you wanted it to go? Because I mean, there's some slow days. There's some times where you pitch to so many people and they just are not interested. So how have you been able to stay true to your vision and your product and to believe that no matter what, we are going to stick it out and make sure that we see the fruits of this particular labor?
I think that would be just staying, always leading with your mission first. For us, it's making global trade accessible to Africans. We believe everyone in Nigeria should be able to shop on the UK high streets the same way you shop from the local vendors here in Nigeria. And that has been our goal from day one. And I think as long as you make that a priority, everything else would fit into it. Now, you can take feedback from investors because investors will always have their own way of seeing things. But the truth is, when you run a business, you know the nitty-gritty. You're the one whose hands are in it. You're the one who's doing all the heavy lifting. So a lot of times you can get distracted with investor feedback saying, oh, why don't you add more technology here? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But yes, it's all well and good to have technology. But if for something like logistics, if you are not doing the hard labor, the hard work of actually getting things moved around, then the technology is useless. And I think we've seen that over the years with providers over the years that have tried to come in with a lot of technology, but not actually understanding how to do the work. And we see how that fizzles out. So for logistics, it's not really ideal. So I think being able to adapt your approach. So adapt your model. So now you have you firm-footed yourself in the business, then you can build your technology into it because you understand where the gaps are, you know where to fill in. That's super important. Once you understand the gaps, you've actually done the work before, then you know, okay, if I had technology here, this would be faster, this will make it more efficient and all of that. I think that's one way I think you can stay true to the vision you have. Don't get sidelined. Stay focused. Don't look around. It's very easy to get carried away and look around. Oh, this person has raised, that person has done that, and get distracted and think, oh my God, why am I still here? Just remember, begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve?
Okay, well, thank you so much. Begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve? I think I have two more questions, and then I think we'll open it up for the audience to give us some questions. I think when it comes to fundraising, because I think everybody is trying to position their business to be funding ready and investor ready. What are the biggest myths about fundraising that you would like to debunk?
I think the first is immediately you don't have to take money from everybody. Not all money is your money. And I have a personal story. Well, we have a personal story about this. We had an investor reach out to us a few years ago, about 5 years ago, and it was such a shiny deal. Like we were literally about to hand over and do the deal. But then we realized that you have to ask questions, regardless of who is investing in your company, no matter how much they intend to put in your company. You have a right as the owner of the business to ask questions. So find out, okay, how have they valued? What kind of value are they bringing? Are they going to be able to open doors for you? Are they going to offer you mentorship? Are they going to hold your hand through the process? How much percentage are they taking? Have an accountant friend or your internal accountant look at the deal and just do your due diligence. Sometimes it's easy to be attracted with, okay, I'm going to invest $100K in your business. And you're like, okay, wow, okay, I quickly want to get the money. But then not all money is your money. As much as it would help your business, you've asked the question previously about how to stay true to your vision. So it's important what kind of investor you pick. If you pick an investor who is aggressive, you may lose your company. And we've seen things like that happen where people have lost their business or become minority shareholders in a business that they built against their wish. Being a minority is not the problem, but be against your wish or a hostile takeover. So I think not all money is your money. Don't take from just anybody. And then also raising money doesn't mean you're successful. It's not a sign of success. Wow. Because we've seen people raise millions of dollars. In fact, you can see the news on TechCrunch, etc., about somebody that has raised $50 million and the company is no more. So I think at the heart in the middle of your mind, understand why you want to fundraise. Understand if you actually need to fundraise. Not everybody needs to fundraise. Sometimes you just need to boost your revenues. Find a way of making sure that you're making 100K today. How can you make ₦1 million tomorrow? Find how that can happen even without investor money. So not all money is your money, and you don't actually always have to raise. You have to get to the point where you realize, okay, at this point, and I think another thing to mention is, even when you're pitching, you have to pitch from a point of view that I'm fine without an investor. I just need an investor to come on board to help me grow faster, to just be a catalyst to what I already have going on. So for instance, if you're already selling, I'll give an example, maybe you're already selling cosmetics, for instance, and somebody wants to come on board. What do you need? Is it that you want to have better branding? Do you want to be able to have a better distribution? Maybe this investor is good with, distribution. So you want this person to come in at this strategic point to help you skyrocket. Not that you are in quotes useless or in quotes unsure or unstructured, and then you now bring an investor. It will just complicate things and muddle the waters. So I think not all money is your money. Investment doesn't mean success. If you don't have a real product, a real structure, you can get investment and still lose your entire business.
I was going to add to that as well. Just to add to what Kike said, investors invest in people. So it's not the shiny products that you have out there. They want to know who you are. They want to understand. And sometimes, a lot of times, people that invest, they just go with your vision. If you have a big dream, sell it to them and they will invest in it. So make sure that you actually understand your market and sell that vision to them as well. Because they invest in human beings, not just the products.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. My takeaway from that is if you have a big dream, just sell it to them. Not all money is good money. So if you're there because I know that every now and again, there is this that we have sometimes as young startups that says, well, I want to get into business, but I don't have the money. I need the capital. I'm not getting into the business because I don't have the money. Business needs money. Those are many of the things that we say, which I think is very, very cliche. So before I just put out my last question, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to announce that if you do have any questions, for us to just still keep order, I think I'd have you write your questions in the comment section, and then we'll pick some of the questions and have Cargo Plug answer those questions. So if you have any questions, please just jot them down right now. And then after this last question, we will take a look at some of the questions that you have. All right. I think in terms of advice, especially to the young women that are coming into business, the young women that say, well, I don't want my business just to be in Nigeria, or rather,
I will be your host for today.
I'm hearing an echo.
More technology here. Why don't you do this?
I'm hearing an echo. Okay. All right. Sorry. So as I was saying, in terms of advice, because I know that unfortunately we live in a generation where some of them are probably like, you ladies were in the UK. Why would you come back? Like, why didn't you stay in the UK? You know, but we do have some that are building to leave Nigeria, but we've got some of those that are within the Nigerian space that are looking for the right kind of mentorship and counsel. I think we learn from other people's mistakes. And I think the question that I want to ask in form of your advice and final words to them is, what is one thing that you wish you knew before you started fundraising?
I think the first thing would be that there are different ways of fundraising. It doesn't have to come from the big VCs. As much as their check sizes are large, you can raise money from your family and friends. We raise money from family and friends. We got to the point where our business needed an injection of funds. And when the money isn't coming, you have to be creative around how you would still boost your business. So we got money from family and friends. Now, I think there are also grants. You have loans. Some people are able to take loans. You have crowdfunding. There are all angel investors, etc. It doesn't have to be from the big VCs. Now, another thing I wish I knew before we started fundraising was how hard fundraising can be, regardless of whatever method of fundraising you choose. Even family and friends, sometimes see finish enters, they're like, you, which business? You, business, I can't give you my money. But then that's why it's important to do things properly. Even if you're selling tiger nut juice from the comfort of your living room, be serious about it. Have a proper branding message. Have as much as you can, even if you have a business name. We started with a business name. And at the point where this family member wanted to come on board, we then transitioned into a limited liability company. So have your corporate governance in place. You're not running a hobby. You can't be having people pay money into your personal accounts and think you're running a proper business. So have proper structure, because we didn't know we were going to need this structure we had put in place. I think for accountability between Amma and myself, we had an Excel spreadsheet where every package coming in, we had all the customers' names. It was called a tracker. It was just a simple Excel spreadsheet. It had the tracker with all customers' names, where the goods were coming from, the weight of the shipments, how much they paid us, how much we paid our partners, how much we paid the third party to go and deliver last mile. And then at the end, it showed the profits per customer. So it was a simple Excel spreadsheet, not even a tool. This was in 2013. Not even a techie tool. We're not accountants. I'm so rubbish with numbers, but I was able to at least impute customers' details. So pick 10 kg, we spent this amount, this is the profit. Now, we got a finance consultant who was our accountant where we're working. We're paying employment, by the way, when Jan Sigidi started. So he helped us formalize it. He put some, sexy formulas so that when you press here, it calculates this and all that. So start with that. No matter how little it is, start with proper corporate governance. Have a legal friend, your lawyers, your lawyer friends, not just about saying I'll go and look for trouble outside. No, use your legal friends to register a business name, no matter how small. Register a business name, have a corporate bank account, and have your TIN number. Start with the basics, and then you can start saying you're doing a proper business. When people see you take this thing seriously, then they invest in you, as Amma said earlier, not just in the tiger nut, in you as a serious entrepreneur. Because today you might be selling tiger nut, tomorrow you might be selling, I don't know, you might be selling billion-dollar properties. So as long as they see the basic skills in you, they're likely to then invest in you for whatever else you want to do. That's why if you see some companies that fail, even though the entrepreneur failed, they can still raise $10 million tomorrow because they believe that this person have some kind of grit. They have some kind of staying power, and they know what they're doing. They know they failed, but they know what not to do in the next venture. So I don't remember where I was going with this, but yeah, the myths, I forgot where I was going with this, but I hope
No,
people were
what you wish you
understanding.
knew about
Yeah, what I wish.
fundraising.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and I
very
think,
competitive. So you can imagine that
yeah,
if you come to an angel and you don't know your numbers, or you don't know, they're like, okay, please drop this person. Or if your pitch deck is not even up to par, don't just, I don't know. Don't even, we even started without a business plan. It doesn't have to be so deep, but at the same time, you have to be, you have to have some kind of structure and seriousness for other people to then put their money into you.
excuse
And then you have to think, if someone comes to you and says, invest in my business, you have to find out, what have you put into the business? Have you been running mad and enjoying your profits and spending the profits on yourself? Or have you been plowing your profits back into the business? It tells them a lot about the kind of entrepreneur you are, whether you're here for serious business or whether you're here to run a hobby. So I think
Right.
with those few words of mine, I hope somebody has learned something from that. And Amma wanted to add something.
Yeah, no, I was going to add that fundraising takes time. I think that's something that nobody ever told us. You see people have raised money and you just think, oh, it took them 2 days. No, sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years to raise investment. So don't be discouraged by the fact that, oh, you haven't raised investments and you just started yesterday. It's not going to come like that. Also, it's also good to network as well while you're fundraising, build a lot of relationships and get the word out there. People don't know you're fundraising, then they're not going to look for you. So you also have to be intentional about spreading the word in your network and actually looking for people that can link you up with the right investors. Also, don't burn bridges as you grow. You will find that a lot of people that are able to get you talking to the right investors might not even you might not get the investor himself. It might be the executive assistant. Be kind to people, be nice to people, because you have no idea the people that might be able to might be gatekeepers in your fundraise journey. I think that's what I wanted to add, and also have a very, very interesting story to tell about your business. A compelling story that people can relate to so that they can understand, especially when you're selling things that can't be seen. You need to be able to sell the story so that it's realistic and the person can kind of understand what it is you're selling for them to want to invest in you.
Oh, wow. I think, thank you so much, ladies. Looking at some of the questions that were put in the chat, I think you've answered every question. But what I am going to ask to do is that perhaps somebody might want a bit of an in-depth kind of explanation. Let's just pause on the questions, and then maybe towards the end, we can share some of the questions. But I think looking at all the questions that were in the group, I think you've answered a number of them. So I think we will end and round up your session with those words. And then if we do have time at the end, we just look at some of the questions, and we do have a Q&A for every speaker that is in the masterclass today. So ladies and gentlemen, can we please just give Cargo Plug a round of applause? Thank you so much, Ujama and Kikilomo, for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. So again, without wasting too much time, let's get right into it. I know that we're good with time. I try and keep to time. That's why they call me Ngozi. I'm a blessing like that. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next session and the next speaker for this morning. This one is tagged investment readiness, what investors really want. So I know that some of the questions that were asked earlier were a bit more in line with this specific topic, what investors want. And this is tagged investment readiness. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Ivana Osagi. She is the founder of PWR Advisories.
Hello.
Is she in the
Hello there.
house?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. Could you, I'm in on 2 devices. Could you let me share on my backup device? It's labeled backup, so I can share my screen, please. Thank you.
Sure. Femi or Emmanuel, can you support here, please?
Hello, Yewande, and hello, everybody else.
Hello, Ivana.
Hello, Ivana. Welcome. This is your
Thank
mom.
So let me try and share again. It's saying it will stop other participants' computer sound share. Shall I go ahead and see anyway? Okay, so that's okay. So I think you can see my screen. You can see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. I'd like to thank Isioma and the Apollo team for inviting me. I don't know whether they sent out my resume or, so I don't spend too much time introducing myself, but my name is Ivana Osage. I've been around for a long time. I have over 3 decades of work experience, and I've done lots of different things. I won't go into too much detail on that. A lot of my work experience was in the UK, but I've been in Nigeria now for a very long time as well. I currently run PW Advisory, and we are an Africa-focused sustainability, inclusion, and governance consulting firm. And I'm also a co-founder of Rising Tide Africa, which you may or may not know of. And if you don't, then you should if you're trying to raise funding. It's a private members club for female investors, and we deploy capital into early stage businesses in Africa. And we do that with a gender lens, which I think is good news for you. So we have we have a soft spot for female entrepreneurs or female-led businesses or businesses that are female serving. So a lot of the work that I do is predominantly at the convergence of sustainability, investment, and gender. And today brings some of those touch points together, which is lovely. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to bridge gaps between capital and opportunity, especially for women. And I love listening to Ujama, I hope I got that right, and Kike. I think what they did was a masterclass. There's nothing like hearing from people who have been there and done that. It makes all the difference in the world. So today we're going to explore what investors really want to see before they invest in a business. I think understanding how an investor thinks, getting into the mindset of an investor and trying to see through the lens of an investor makes all the difference in the world for you as entrepreneurs. Raising money, like I think it was Ujama said, raising money is tough. It's like going to war, and you don't go to war without being armed. And in this battle, you need knowledge. And so we're going to give you some knowledge today. You've already gotten some from Ujama and Kike, and also you need a lot of resilience because it's tough out there. So make sure you build resilience. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll look at the investor mindset. How do investors think? What are they looking for? What are the key factors they consider when making an investment decision? And then we'll look at what does it mean to be a female founder? What are the peculiarities of being a female founder? What are the pros and what are the cons? Because there's some advantages, as you'll see. Then how do you tell your startup story? One of the ladies earlier talks about telling a compelling story that captures attention and helps you to get the money that you want. So how do you tell that story in a way that resonates with your audience? How do you command attention and hopefully get the funding that you need? And then we'll look at your pitch deck. What sort of slides? What are some must-have slides in your pitch deck? And then we'll look at how do you follow up after you have engaged an investor. And my intention is for this session to be practical, very interactive, and also hopefully very empowering.
Hello. So I think let's give, I don't know if it's just on my end, but let's just give Ivana a few minutes to just connect again. We apologize for that glitch. We're just trying to get her to reconnect again. So again, just very quickly while we are waiting for her, if you do have a few questions that you do want to ask her, just jot them down very quickly, such that when we get to the Q&A session, you have all your questions ready for her.
Can you hear me? Hello there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear now.
Yes, apologies. MTN let me down. I lost my my connection. I hope it doesn't happen again. Let me I think I need to come back on my slides. Just a second. Did you get to the quiz question while I was away? Hello, are you there?
Their brain juices are coming together for us to test them very well.
I didn't hear that. Did you get to the quiz questions?
No, we've not gotten to the quiz questions yet.
Oh, okay. I hope there wasn't a problem.
None at all.
Oh, this is so slow. Crazy. I'm having to register all over again to rejoin, so just a second while I do that. Right, so it says the meeting is at the host allowed capacity, so I can't come in on my other, I can't come in on my, with my slides because we are at the, at capacity. So I'm gonna have to come off here and come back on my other laptop because that's where my slides are. So let me exit here. Now, if I exit here, I may not be able to come back on though. That's the challenge. I'm not sure what to do. Right. Maybe what I'll do is I'll move my slides across here.
One person is left now, so we're at 99 instead of 100. I think you can try and just log in with your slides one more time.
Okay, let's hope somebody else doesn't come in before I do. Let's hope I don't get knocked off again. Right, I'm getting the same message, so let me just, I'm getting the same message, so that's not working. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. So we've got, please just try again. We've got 98 now. Just try again. It should allow you to come in.
Are you sure? I mean, okay.
Yes. Someone jumped into you while you were trying to log in. So we've got 98 now. It should allow you to come in.
Okay. Chance that I have to keep registering every time I'm trying to join. So that takes time as well. Okay, let's hope that works. Yeah, it looks like I'm in now. Okay, so let me share my screen again. share screen. Okay, looks like we're back in business. So I think you can see my slide.
100%.
Okay, so I'll wait a bit for you to access the quiz again. So Inam, can you let me know, please, when to proceed, when people are ready?
Okay, let's just take 1 minute for everyone to try and access the quiz. And then because we are just behind time a little bit, you can go ahead and proceed. I think maybe let everyone take a screenshot of this particular slide, and then we just get right into it, please.
Okay, so I think that's a good idea. So we'll defer on the quiz, I think is what you're saying, Inam. Yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yes. The whole idea really was to understand where people are at in their startup journey. So moving on, let's focus now on the meat of this session, which is really about what do investors want? What are investors looking for? And I like something that the entrepreneur said earlier. It doesn't really matter how fantastic your product is. Will it generate returns for the investor? That's really what an investor is thinking about, right? Because an investor is investing most likely because they want to make some money. We do have impact investors, which I'll touch on a bit later, but the investors are looking for returns on the capital that they invest into your business. So they're very much interested in how risky is this for me, and how much money am I likely to make? Is it going to be worth my while? So you must think about that. You know, I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we get very excited about this great idea we have, but you need to think about what the investor wants. So here are a number of things in large boxes that investors think about. One is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? What problem are you trying to solve? Is this a problem that is worth solving? Is it something that affects a lot of people? Is it something that a lot of people will want to spend money for? Will people want to buy your solution? A lot of people, because an investor is always thinking about scale. When you are an early stage business in the very beginning of your journey, there's a lot of risk involved because you probably don't have so much of a track record. There are lots of things you don't have that a more established business has. So it's very risky for us as investors to come in at that stage. So they're really thinking about, for instance, if I invest in 10 startups, say 10 early stage startups, we know that based on the research, I would say that almost 90% or so of them may not be around over the long term. So an investor is very much aware of that. And so to be able to mitigate our risk, what we think about is identify the startups that are more likely to be around. And that's why they ask you lots of questions, because they're trying to mitigate risk, because we know that for early stage businesses, the risk factor is very high based on the research. So an investor wants to know about the market opportunity. They want to know about size, how big is your market? And don't just focus on your addressable market, but also think about, of that addressable market, how much of that can you actually capture over time? Very important, market size. They want to know about the competitive landscape. How many other startups are doing the same thing that you are doing? What's your unique selling point? What advantage do you bring? What's unique about your business? What do you bring to the table that the other startups don't have? In terms of your solutions. If we think about it now, since we saw the Flutter Waves and the Paystacks come to the scene, we've had a lot more startups, fintechs appear on the horizon. And we've seen some of those go under for different reasons. But I would say that a startup like MoneyPoint and OPay, I think, are doing a great job. I think MoneyPoint in particular has done a fantastic job. So they obviously do something different from what some of the other fintechs are doing. They have some advantage that they have that the other fintechs don't have. And that's why they've been so successful. So you must find something that you bring to the table that is your competitive advantage that other people cannot copy, or maybe it's very difficult for them to copy. The other thing that is important also, and I want to mention here before I go on, Again, one of the entrepreneurs mentioned is that as investors, we don't just invest in the opportunity, we invest in the person and in the team. So we want to identify founders who have staying power, who will be around for the long term, and a founder who will not disappear when there's a problem. So I've done some investments where people have, when there's a problem and things are not going right, you're looking for the investor. They don't give you information and you don't know what's going on. As an investor, I personally, and a lot of other investors, we don't just invest our capital, we also invest our time, because we want to try and ensure that this opportunity does well, that the business does well. And so an investor will come alongside you and help you work through knotty issues, also open up their contact book. So I talked about Rising Tide Africa. We invest capital, but we also invest our contact book. So we can help you open up, for instance, give you access to somebody who's an expert in human resources, or it could be branding, or it could be about your supply chain. We find your supply chain expert so that we work together to try and ensure that your business can survive and it can scale. There's an inordinate amount of focus today on fundraising. And I don't think there's enough focus on running a business properly and building a robust business. And I think part of the reason for this is because a lot of investors come to the table with that masculine energy. And I think we need a lot more feminine energy in the room. I think you need to have a balance of both. And I don't really want to get into that too much today because I can get distracted. But the point is that that masculine energy is very competitive. It's all about raise, raise, raise. And we make a lot of noise about raising, raising, raising. But what about running a business? Being able to run a business properly. The research shows that female-run businesses are better run typically on the average than male-run businesses. So we must focus on that. But obviously you need money to run your business. So that's also important. So for you as an entrepreneur, you must know your numbers. You must understand the market. You must be able to tell a story that shows that you know what's going on in the space in which you operate, that you understand who the competition are, what they're doing, and what's different from your own, what's different about your own startup. The character and the values of the entrepreneur matter. I've talked about entrepreneurs who disappear, but also some entrepreneurs are not very honest. They get some money and they go off and do something different from what they agreed they were going to do with the money. We've seen that happen in the market. We also want to ensure it's not a one-man band. Ideally, we want to see that you're not going in this alone, that you have a team of people and that people have the right level of experience and expertise to do the job that you're talking about. So that's all very important. Now, having talked about the problem, having talked about the founder, we want to know what your solution is. And I've talked about that a little bit. What's different about your solution? What value are you actually creating? What's your revenue model? What's your business model? What's your revenue? How are you going to make money? So for instance, if you think about, let me give you the example of a startup that I invested in, and I actually sit on the board. When we started out with providing solutions for very busy people who don't have enough time to, for instance, cook a pot of stew, to get some pepper and tomato and blend it and do all of that. So we started out by providing sachets of partly cooked tomato and pepper that would help people to get their food faster and not spend too much time in the kitchen. Now, we found that that was something that was very popular in the market, particularly for the lower level people out there on the street, because we put something in there that made it easy to use also for those sorts of people. We have now moved further down the road and we've added other functionality and other products to the market, but we wanted to be sure that this was a product that people would buy, right? And so having proven that, we've then been able to expand. And we say that we've brought different products to the table, which means that we have multiple sources of revenue, multiple products out there. And we're very careful about us building the supply chain. We had to get somebody from one of the FMCGs to work with us on building our supply chain, putting a strong route to market forward to ensure that the business model was credible. How are you going to acquire customers, number one? And then having acquired customers, how much value can you extract from that customer across the lifetime of that customer? And are you going to be able to retain customers? It is much cheaper and easier to retain a customer than to acquire a new customer. So that customer retention piece is also very important. I've talked about competitive advantage. These are some of the things that you need to be thinking about when you're putting your business together. Another thing I want to touch on now is on your financials, very important. Are you keeping records, for instance, of your financials? And I like what was said before about record keeping, because when we want to invest, we want to see the numbers historically. So you must keep records of what is coming in and what is going out. And then you must have structure in place. So that bank account, separate bank account is very important. You must be properly registered at CAC, very important. And then also, a very big thing and something that we fight on a lot when we start to talk to startups. And when I say we fight, I'm talking about the entrepreneur and the investor. It's always a sticky point talking about the valuation. What is the value of your business? The investor has obviously got an idea of what the business is worth. The startup or the entrepreneur has an idea. Now, for entrepreneurs, this can be quite emotional because they have invested their time. It's something they're very passionate about. And so they have a different idea. And quite often, the idea of the entrepreneur, when it comes to valuation, is going to be a lot higher than the idea of the investor. But we need to find a meeting point. And I think for us as investors, it's important to realize that we want to give the entrepreneur an incentive to work at this business and feel that they have some level of control, not that they're not an employee working for the investor. That's very important. So for you as an entrepreneur, you need to try and be objective and be sure that you're not being too emotional when it comes to valuations. One of the ways that we think about valuations is thinking about the potential of the business. What are the future projections in terms of revenues? So we sometimes start to talk about multiples, and I'm very careful about being too technical when I have these sessions with women because I think it can really go over our heads. But one of the ways that the different ways of valuing a business, one is that we talk about future projections. What is the potential of the business? So today, you are able to, your customer base, maybe you're able to, from that customer base, you're able to generate 2 million naira a month. And that's not a very big number. Or maybe we see that there's a lot of potential, and maybe we see that over the next 1 year, that can scale up to maybe about 100 million potentially, perhaps. So we will invest based on that potential. Another way that we also do valuations is thinking about what you have done in the past. So we think about your track record. We think about what the business has done previously. There are different ways of doing this. But these are some things that you need to bear in mind. Your revenue projections are very important. We also want to know how profitable is this business like to be? What is your cost structure? Cost of staffing, your operational costs. How can we streamline those costs so that you're more profitable? Some people focus a lot on revenue. Some investors focus more on profitability. It really depends on the investor. And then how fast are you spending money? That's what we call the burn rate. So if we invest in you today and we give you 1 million naira, for instance, or 10 million naira, 5 million naira, depending on the size of your business, how quickly are you going to run out of money? How can we streamline that so that that money is going to last faster? And we also want to think about what happens when that money runs out. Are you going to be able to continue for a while on your cash flows, or how quickly are you going to be looking for new money? These are some things that we think about as investors. It looks like somebody's writing on my slides. An investor is thinking very much about risk. It's about risk versus return. And the more risky the business is, the more expensive getting money will be for the entrepreneur. Can you still hear me? Hello?
Yes, clearly, Ivana.
Yes,
Okay,
we can.
I just want to make sure that I haven't lost you and I'm rabbiting on.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Now, something
Hearing
else,
you loud and clear.
something that's very important to an investor. Remember that I said that when an investor comes, they're thinking about making money. And when we invest in your business, the way that we make money is when we exit, when we leave the business, because we'll say we came in and I invested, say, 10 million naira in your business, and then I was able to sell that down. Somebody came and bought my stake in your business. And because your business has grown over time, my 10 million naira has now become worth 80 million naira over time. So an investor is always thinking about how they can exit your business. So you also ideally want to be thinking about that. When investors come in, at some point, it could potentially, you could be buying back that investor stake because you think that you can see that there's a lot more potential. Or when we start to look in another slide about the types of investors, if I come in as an angel investor and I put in 10 million naira and the business grows, then maybe we can attract the attention of institutional investors. So say, for instance, a VC fund or a private equity fund. And if I stay long enough, maybe at some point you might even go and get listed on the stock exchange and I exit through an IPO. But these are some things that investors think about. And I just want to say here that there are different types of investors. Investors can come in at the very early stage because you have a great idea. You really haven't formulated as a proper business. But many investors want to see that you have a minimum viable product, that you have been able to bring something to the table that is generating revenues, and it's very simple, but it's a proof of concept that it can generate revenues and it shows that it can scale. And so when you are building your business, don't spend too long thinking about putting on all the bells and whistles. Try and do something that enables you to get out the door, because that will attract the attention of investors. Now, let's move on. I seem to have lost control of my slides. So I want to talk about what's unique about being a female founder. Now, there's quite a bit of good news about being a female founder. We don't talk enough about it. One is that the research shows that when women run businesses, because we have that attention to detail, the businesses typically are better run than businesses that are run by men. I mean, that's playing to stereotypes, I agree. But also research shows that women generate, research showed that women generated, for this research that was conducted by, I think it was a Boston consulting group, women generated about 78 cents for every dollar of funding that they received, compared to 32 cents that were generated by male-founded startups. So that's a lot of good news, generally speaking. I think part of the bad news is that there are a lot more male investors out there than female investors. And when male investors interact with female founders, the female founders encounter quite a bit of bias. So they will ask you questions about risk. They focus a lot about risk, whereas when they talk to male founders, they talk about potential. So the sort of questions that you get will be very different. So they can ask you, what are the risks of your business? Have you thought about how you're going to mitigate this risk? Whereas when they talk to a male founder, they can ask them questions in, where do you see the business in 10 years? Those sorts of questions. But there are ways to get around this by doing your homework. Also, the good news is that there are quite a few gender-lens investors out there. So there are quite a few funds who are looking to invest in female-led or female-owned or businesses that that have a large proportion of women in the management team or in the staff. So that's some good news. And if you're a female founder, ideally you want to try and find those sorts of investors. There are also angel investors, like myself, for instance, and my network, who are very much focused on supporting female founders. My own investment thesis is that I really don't think that Nigeria is going to get any better until we have more women in leadership and governance. And having women in leadership and governance requires agency and requires financial muscle. So we need to have a lot more women building large businesses, running large businesses, and also deploying capital, because that's the way that I think we are going to be able to drive change in our country, but also on the continent. And that is part of the reason why I do a lot of the work that I do. So there's a huge funding gap because there's a big difference in the numbers. Nearly 40% of Nigerian women run early stage businesses, but a very small proportion of those people are able to access capital. And that's largely because, number one, there's a gap between female founders and investors. We could do a lot more when it comes to networking, for instance, building that network of people in the investment space. So that networking is very important. You must show that you are leading strong. You must build confidence. You must know your onions. You must do the homework, know your numbers, and also be confident in what you're doing because you have those numbers, because you know your numbers and you have done your homework. Be able to exert influence as a woman in the business, even if you're not the CEO. Are you able to generate good ideas for the business? Are you able to demonstrate value? If we come across a business that is run by a man, but for instance, we have a woman sitting in the CEO seat, or we have a lot of women who are sitting in the management team, or sometimes if it's a business that is producing products and services for women, we are very interested in those because although they're not female founded, we see that they're female serving or they have lots of women around in the business. So those are some things to think about. I think we know what the barriers are, but I think let's focus on what the solutions are. For starters, like I said, we must cultivate relationships. We must get better at networking as women. Find out where investors gather. So there are lots of meetings and conferences that you can attend, and then build relationships with these investors. An investor who is not interested in your business today may be interested tomorrow. And even if they're not, they may know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. So I may not be interested in investing in your business, but perhaps I know that there's a fit for another investor, and therefore I can do a referral. So that's how you need to think. Everything that you want in life is going to come through people. So it's important that we build those networks. And also, while we're at it, also build your support group, because it's like going to war. So you need support. You need people who can help you to challenge your thinking, to expose to you your biases and your blind spots. People who can give you support and who can remind you of how great you are and why you got started doing this when the going gets tough. So build that support system. Find your tribe who will support you when it gets going. And be visible. If you're not visible, how are people going to know about the great things you're doing, about the great business you're running, and how are they going to give you the opportunities, including funding that you need for your business? How am I doing for time? How much time do I have left? Inam, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Another 10 minutes.
Okay, not too bad. Okay, so moving on now, I want to talk about your pitch deck. Your pitch deck is the document that you're going to use when you are engaging with investors. It's a very important document. And I think that there are different versions of this pitch deck, actually. So we talk about pitch deck as if it's just one. So sometimes when I am helping an entrepreneur to raise funding, the first thing I say is, give me a condensed version, what I call a teaser. And you're not going into too much detail there. It's a very condensed version. It could even be a Word document, a one-page Word document. It could be maybe just 2 or 3 slides, but it has to be something that captures the attention. And you typically would not be going into too much detail, for instance, on your financials there, but you're talking about what the problem is, what the solution is, your why, and then talking about yourself and your team in that document. So it's a very condensed document. But when we talk about the pitch deck itself, it's a more detailed document. And what I have here is how you tell that story using your pitch deck, because that's what your pitch deck is. It's a story. The first thing you want to talk about is the pain point that you're trying to solve. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And you must be very specific. And also, you must be relatable, because the investors need to understand what you're talking about. And I think for us as women, this is why sometimes it's very difficult for us to access funding, because a lot of us as women run what we call lifestyle businesses that solve sort of problems that women encounter every day. And sometimes male investors don't understand the value of those sorts of businesses. So for instance, I have encountered female investors who are solving problems when it's about skincare or hair care products. And sometimes men don't actually understand those. And it doesn't matter how fantastic your numbers look, they may not be very interested because they don't think it's a big problem, it's a big enough problem. So if you have those sorts of businesses, try and find investors that understand those sorts of businesses, because it's going to be more relatable for them. But investors need to understand what exactly the problem is and who it affects. And the more real, the more urgent the pain point, the more powerful your pitch will be. When it comes to Nigeria, the challenges that we face today in Nigeria, I think there's so many things that we can solve, and that's why we have a lot of startups. But be very careful that you're not a what I call a Me Too business. Sometimes we see that. So people just feel that everybody's an entrepreneur, everybody has a startup. So I must have a startup to ensure that you have a proper problem. Ensure that you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you will find that you will come apart at the seams before you get started. What is the solution for your problem? So you've explained what the pain point is. What is your solution? And how does your solution solve the problem? And what is unique about it? It has to be very compelling. It has to be very clear. If you can't explain your solution in a couple of sentences, then maybe it's too complex, or maybe you don't understand the solution yourself. And let me also say something here. If you are, I found entrepreneurs who are very technical people, and they may not be the best salespeople. So what do? They find somebody who's a salesperson who understands this problem and also understands the solution and can sell. To know who you are, that self-awareness is very important. Know where your gaps are and find people who can fill those gaps. That's why it's important to talk about having a team. Everybody plays a different role. We all come to the table with different skills. So know what your gaps are. If you know that you're not very good at selling, maybe you can come up the curve and learn to sell. But if you can't, find somebody who can sell and who can actually help you sell to investors. The credibility of the founder is very important. Do you have a track record? If you have built a startup and it went pear-shaped for whatever reason, but you are now building another startup and you have a credible story to explain why your startup went aground, or you can explain what lessons you have learned, that is some value that you bring to the table. The business that you're trying to run, is it a personal pain point for you? Do you have a connection to that problem? Have you lived it? Have you studied it? Is this something you've spent a lot of time doing, working on? That helps to build trust. And really, when it comes to investment, it's really, if you think about it, it's really all about trust. So think about that. What is your big why? What's your mission? Every business must have a purpose. You're in business because you want to make money, yes. But what does the world benefit by you being around? Investors are very attracted to founders who have a mission, something that solves a problem in the world, something that makes a difference in the world. Investors are very attracted to those sorts of founders. So what is your big why? Why is this important to you? Why are you doing it? What is the bigger need in society that you're trying to solve? Investors will be very interested in talking to you if you are able to bring that to the table. You know, so for instance, you have a vision of the one that the ladies talked about earlier. They talked about the vision they have. The mission was really to help to solve the logistics problems and make sure that we can move goods from one part of the world to another part of the world, and to ensure that Africa doesn't get locked out. That is a big why, and that's right at the top. And then you then start to delve into detail of the solution. You can't have a pitch deck that doesn't talk about how much you want or how much you need and how you're going to spend the money. I've seen lots of pitch decks that don't have that information. And as an investor, it doesn't matter what you tell me. I also want to know how much do you need and how do you plan to spend that money? Very important. And ensure that if you're going to come to the table, you're going to come to the table knowing about how long that money is going to last and what you're going to do when that money runs out, because that's something that's important to me as an investor. I keep losing track, losing control. Okay, so I've talked about that story. What are the key slides that you must have in that pitch deck? And I've touched on some of this already, but I want to now focus specifically on the particular slide. The slides you have must address all of the things that I've talked about. You must have a slide that talks about your problem and your solution. And it's possible that you may combine some of these slides, but these pieces of information are very important to have on your slide. You must start out with a compelling message about the problem that you're trying to solve, about why you think your solution is different. Very important. That problem and solution must be there. And then you need to talk about the market and demonstrate that you actually understand the market. What is happening out there? How big is the market that you're trying to capture? How much of that do you think you can capture today? And how much of that do you think you can capture over time? And what are other people doing in that space? And what's different about your product? What is it that you've built that you're bringing to the table? What is your business model? How are you going to generate, how are you actually going to generate revenues? Are you going to generate your revenues, for instance, is it going to be by providing a product that people pay monthly for? Is it going to be by capturing customers, and over the lifetime of that customer, you keep meeting their needs and their pain points? Is it going to be, are there going to be customers who come on board and it's a very transactional and it's a one-off? All the different models, but your business model must be very important. Is it going to be a platform model, for instance, like an Uber? Is it going, the different business models, but you must be very clear about what your business model is. And we don't have enough time to get into too much detail on that. And then traction is important. If you have been around for a while, what have you achieved? If you haven't been around for a while, how do you intend to demonstrate your staying power to your investor? Your financial projections, very, very important. You must have a slide that talks about your financial projections. So that is about your revenue. So you need to have what we call a financial model. And to put together a financial model, you actually need to have someone who understands financials to help you put together that financial model. But when you're building your pitch deck, your financial projections are very important. It's about your forecast. So you say that over the next 3 years, this is how much I think I'm going to get. Over the next 5 years, you're making projections out into the future. And that is based on assumptions, and those assumptions must be very clear. Another slide you need to have is talking about people. Who are your team? Investors want to ensure that you have the right team around you and understand what they bring to the table, what is their experience, what have they done before, and how much value can they create. And then, very important that I talked about, how much are you asking for and how are you going to spend that money? So I think that this is the minimum information that the minimum piece of information in your slide that you must have. Ideally, you don't want to have too many slides because you can lose people in your slides. And a picture, speaks 1,000 words, like they say. So ensure that you have pictures, you have bullet points. It's not too much text. Otherwise, your slides are going to be too overloaded and you find that you'll have too many of them. So try and keep it concise. That's very important. I want to talk about the different types of investors now. There's over the lifetime of your business, the different types of investors that you come into contact with. So at the very early stages, when you have an idea and maybe you haven't even started generating any revenues, your family and friends, and people say FFF, family, friends, and foolish. They say sometimes because, we don't have any track record. We're just trying to get started. We're not even sure how, the risk is very high. We're not even sure whether this is going to go very well. So your family and friends are people who can give you money at this stage. And that money they may not even give you the money as an investment. It could be something that what we call dash in Nigeria, right? But those are the first people you want to turn to, ideally, when you want to get started. You're not going to start thinking about going to a bank, for instance, or asking a stranger for money. The next set of investors that you can encounter are angel investors. They're willing to take a lot more risk, for instance, than institutional investors. But angel investors will also do their own due diligence, and they'll ask you the sort of question I've been asking, but they're more interested in taking risk because they understand the potential and they're looking at the upside when they help your business grow and scale. After the angel investor, the next investor is then an institutional investor, your venture capitalist. It could be a venture capital fund. And I have to say that these days there's been a blurring of the lines because we find that venture capital comes in sometimes even at the very early stage of the business. We've seen that happen. And then even private equity too. But private equity is usually a lot more structured, a lot more rigorous. And they require that you have been around for a long time. Your business is a bit more mature. You have a lot more going for you. before they even get interested. And they're very, very careful, very stringent conditions. And then hopefully at some point, you will then think about becoming a listed company, but it's a long way down the road. But I just want to say that these are the sort of types of investors that you will encounter. And every type of investor will ask you different types of questions, and they'll have different things that they're particularly interested in. But they're always going to be looking on returns, because that's what they're there for. Now, I want to talk about impact investors, depending on the kind of business that you're running. If you're a business that is focused on solving a social problem, for instance, today, we talk about net zero, we talk about the energy transition. And so we have a lot of people who are running solar businesses, and we have investors who are interested in ensuring that people actually achieve the energy transition. Or it could be that you're dealing with waste, or it could be that you're providing a solution for the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So these are social problems that you're trying to solve. And an impact investor will sometimes be interested in commercial returns, but also they're interested in how much impact you're generating, and they can be a bit more gentle with you. We also have impact investors who are entirely focused on just impact, and they'll give you money because you're solving that problem. They're not so much concerned about the commercial returns. They can come in at the very early stage of your business to help you mitigate the risk and bring you up to the level where you find a commercial investor who then is able to come in, because that impact investor has come in and taken all a lot of the risk on the business. Having now secured the attention of your investors, what do you do next? How do you follow up? Having done your pitch, how do you follow up? I think one of the things the mistakes I've seen people make is to get confused about the sort of relationship they have with a potential investor. A potential investor is not your friend. It's a strategic relationship, and you must treat that relationship with care. You must be careful about how you show up. Don't, for instance, start sending WhatsApp messages, sending them prayers. They're not your friends. It's a strategic relationship, so be very careful about how you manage that relationship. But follow up quickly. If you have promised to give them information or send them additional slides, do that very quickly. Don't waste too much time, and personalize your message. Send a thank you message and talk about what the next steps are. So you take control of that interaction and that relationship, because you want to drive it. But be very careful about being overpowering as well. Be concise and respect the time of the investor. Be very self-aware. Know the sort of investor you're dealing with. Some investors want a lot of information. Give them what they want. Some investors just want big picture. Give them big picture. Don't confuse them. Some investors are very big on respect. So be very careful about deferring. I always tell the story about some young men who approached a friend of mine who's as an investor. My friend is somebody, he's clocking 70 this year. These young men were in their 30s, and they lived in the US, and my friend had been around the US for a long time. But they're all Nigerian, right? And these young men go in and address him by his first name, and before they knew what was happening, the meeting was over, because he felt that they were not being very respectful. So be very careful. The fact that we are in the space with a lot of foreign investors doesn't mean that we take it for granted. In Nigeria, respect is very important. I suggest that you defer to people and let them say, oh, call me, but address me, call me Bob or call me Vanna. Don't just go in and start addressing people by their first name. So be very structured in your messaging and think about what the question will be, what the objections will be, and have the answers ready. You must get into the mindset of your investor and think about it from their perspective, not just your perspective. What are they going to be concerned about, and have your answers ready, right? Very, very important. To end, I just want to say to you that you have a lot more control than you think you have. Be at the table, but take charge and think about how you can change the space and redesign the table. Build confidence, know your onions, do your homework, and come to the table with confidence. You deserve to be in the room. Thank you. I will now stop for questions. Have I lost you, or are you there?
Oh, we're here. We're just taking in everything and super, a lot of
I'm not
knowledge
sh-
there, a lot of the right words. Inam,
Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
All right, awesome. I think I got disconnected there. I think we'll just take one question. Thank you so much, Ivana. Ladies and gentlemen, again, Mrs. Ivana, the founder of PWR Advisory. I think let's just take one question. If we can just pull up one question, if there are any. All right, I'm not seeing any questions right
Concerned that there are
now.
no questions. I feel like I haven't done a good job because I don't really see why you don't have any questions.
And
Please.
so I think it means you've done an amazing job, but there's one question though, Inam.
Okay, so we've got one question here from Ola Jumoke. How do we pitch for new businesses without traction?
How do you pitch for new business or how do you pitch for investment?
The question is, how do we pitch for new businesses without traction?
No, I think she meant investment.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, how do you pitch for new investment? How do you pitch for investment without traction? So remember what I said that in the first place, the best place to start, if you don't have any traction, for instance, is to turn to your family and friends because they're more likely to be gentle with you. So if you don't have any track record, that would be a good place to start. Start with your family and friends. They're more like they will be more open to invest in your business than a stranger who doesn't know you. The other thing to say is that you can actually start to cultivate a relationship with an angel investor, for instance. If they get to know you and they realize that you're a good character, you have relevant experience, then they may be willing to take a bet on you. Everything is about relationships. Ultimately, everything in life is about relationships. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, and we'll just take one more. Oluwatobi Ade says, my question is, how do you look for investment when you still have an idea but need sponsors?
I think I've answered that, haven't I?
Yes. Okay, then one more and then we'll move on, just so people don't say we did not ask their questions. I think, ladies and gentlemen, as well, when you're writing your question, please just try and be as specific as possible, such that we're not itching our heads trying to understand what it is that you're saying. I've got a question here, Ivana, from Boneface, and he says, if I am asked to demonstrate my idea, how do I do it considering my product is not tangible?
If I'm asked to demonstrate my idea, how do I do it considering my product is not tangible?
Yes.
So you don't necessarily need to demonstrate, you just need to explain what your product is. And whether your product is tangible or not, you should be able to explain it in a couple of sentences. So I think off the top of my head, what I would say is put your idea into ChatGPT, make it as detailed as possible, and get ChatGPT to help you to summarize it. That would be a good place to start. But I find that the more we talk to people about our ideas, the clearer they become to us. So talk to people about this idea, and it will start to crystallize in a way that you're able to articulate it to a potential investor in a compelling way that commands their attention. That would be my advice.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, can we please just appreciate Mrs. Ivana Osagi, the founder of PWR Advisory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best, ladies. We need you out there. And a point I forgot to make actually is that a lot of investors talk about scaling. They're looking for the next unicorn, the next pay stack. But SMEs may not necessarily achieve that level of scale, but may be worth investing. So find the right investor who will understand what you're trying to do and may be interested in an SME, not just a very big scalable startup. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ivana. Awesome.
All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're still with us. I know that some of you guys are probably saying, oh, my data, but this is where you want to be. These are the kind of investments that we need to make in order for us to be investor ready, in order for us to have the right kind of knowledge, for us to drive traction and become scalable. So thank you again for making the time to be here. I'm not going to waste too much time because I know that we are behind time. So I want us to jump right into our next session for the day. Ladies and gentlemen, the next woman that I am going to welcome has got quite a bit of a background and experience in the industry and field. So from telecoms to commercial banks, heading customer relations, volunteering in Singapore, and then finally settling in Accra, Ghana, to not just building her own events management and consulting company, but also finding a way to pivot into life of wellness and corporate coaching. And then, of course, sitting as a partner to the Get Funded Africa. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, who is going to sit and speak on the topic, the elevator's pitch, storytelling for funding success. I'd like to welcome to the front. She's a business consultant, and of course, she wears many more hats. Can we please give a round of a welcome in the comments to Mrs. Ife Ogundwole? I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Absolutely fine.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day to everyone, wherever you are. My name is Efe, and I'm really, really pleased to be here today. This is something which I think is very close to a lot of people's hearts and to mine, because, you know, as women especially, one thing we do very well is tell stories. So I think it's important for us to get it right, and the right narrative will always take us the right way. And I was going to ask if I could share my the screen so I could also share some slides that I have.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, so let me see if I have that. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Hi. Hi, everyone, and a very, very big welcome. So it's been interesting listening to everyone. I've listened to, funny enough, I keep thinking of them as Jan to Giddy. I still don't have the cargo brand in the brand that sticks with me is always the Jan to Giddy, because I remember how that was the name itself struck a chord with most people. And then I think Ivana has said so much actually that has been very helpful, and it's something of what I'm going to speak about, because she talks a lot about your pitch deck. And our pitch deck is the last thing that we get to do when we've been given that audience by our investors, be it angel investors or your venture capitalist or whoever is coming to listen to us. Interestingly, I used to train startups actually and get them ready for investment readiness before they had their deal days. And through that, I was able to hear lots of stories from people. And one thing is, I think almost everybody has a story. I always say every perspective is valid. So you'll find that whatever you're coming with definitely will hit a chord. Sometimes the issue was being able to, I think Boniface asked the question about that, when maybe you don't have something tangible. And one thing you notice that people have a really good story behind why they are doing whatever it is, or behind the solution that they have come about. But in giving that story or telling that story to the world, sometimes, I don't know if we get tongue-tied or we get, there's so much. Because listening to Ivana as well, you could hear all the things that have to come through. And sometimes it is overwhelming. Sometimes it seems like there's a lot. But the thing we need to learn, which is why we're here today, is how to pick out those very important salient points and bring that out. Because to be honest, if what you're saying, you can talk, but if nobody's really listening or understanding what you're saying, then the whole plot is lost. So let's talk about the transformative power of storytelling, right? You want money, you have this really good idea that has come about. And, the greatest tool you have really is it's a compelling narrative, something that's going to reach the people that you want it to reach, something that's going to strike a chord. Why are we getting into this? What makes you think that what you have? As they say, as it comes with storytelling, that's funny, because I remember when I went for my first job, I wasn't looking for funds, but I thought, oh, I like to talk. And I remember my boss then, or the interviewer, saying to me, what makes you think that because you have the gift of the gab, because you can talk, means that you are going to get a job, or you're going to say the things that we want to hear? And that really struck a chord with me then. And it sort of like told me that whatever it is you're going to do, always remember that you need to be saying the things that people want to hear, because we can all talk. Everybody can say things. We can, we tell stories. And I always bring it back as an individual. Where you want to start from is, where do you hear stories? Like, in what part of life, whatever you do. Even when we go to church, like for those who go to church or to a mosque and you're sitting down there, you know there's some pastors that grab your attention. Why? Because when they say what they want to say, the way they say this, the way they tell that story, it's something you might have listened to 101 times, but it just depends on who's telling that story and how they're saying it. So it's something that I think they also learn, because you have to learn to listen to yourself. You have to learn to practice what you're saying, and then that gives you the idea and gives you an idea of how you want to go about your story. So let's go in. First of all, I always say, when you're coming to tell people, or you're going for a deal day, or you have the option, or you've gotten to that spot where you're going to share your pitch deck, right? You're there. First of all, we need our elevator pitch, because without that, if you can't grab your investor's attention within the first 3 minutes, really, or within the first minute, you basically lost them. They might sit there and still listen to you, but really it's gone, because it's not something that's attractive to them, or you haven't given them what they want to hear. But now, for those of us, and I'm sure all of us here, after this whole session, which is amazing, I'm sure with all the tips, whoever is going forward is going to go forward fully armed. So you will know how to do your elevator pitch. And once you have their attention, you would know the other things to do. So why do we go into storytelling? In listening to all that we have, you have this whole pitch deck. You've put numbers, you've put graphs, you've put everything that you can imagine that you think people want to see. You have a whole business plan ahead of you. You've researched, you've done everything, right? But if I come into a room, like we stayed here, and I was like, oh, okay, this is 10:42. We started at 10, and between 10 to 10:05, I realized that we spoke about this and blah, blah, blah. Numbers can really, really be boring. They can. And not everyone understands numbers like that until they get to the numbers that they actually want to hear. But with stories, you get to engage your audience. You resonate with them, you make a connection, and that connection is what really brings the investor to you. I would say probably, I don't know if people watch Dragon's Den, or you watch one of the Apprentice back in the day when our dear Donald Trump had that show. And if you watch them, even if you go back till today and you watch, you realize that there are people who have fantastic ideas sometimes. But when they got to the front and they brought that out, perhaps it didn't come out right. Perhaps they didn't follow through. Perhaps they didn't just say the things that people wanted to hear. And you find that that idea probably was better than the other one, but the other one ended up being the winner, right? So when we share our journey and our triumphs, we share our authentic selves in whatever we're saying. You find that you bring people into your world. They begin to see from your point of view, which is what you want. Because everything you say, I always say to, when I find people who start entrepreneurs who started their business, that nobody can sell your story the way you will. You bring your passion, you bring everything into it, because you're like, this is something that is very dear to you, and nobody can have it the way you do. A lot of people have probably seen the same thing, but you're the only one who's been able to find the solution to this problem. And this is why you are here, and this is why you want to share it with the world, right? So it's trying to capture their attention, and also they need to trust that this person I'm talking to is saying that what they're going to do, they're really going to do it, right? So that means they need to trust in what you're saying. You need to have some credible kind of story that comes through, which is why I said being authentic, bringing your authentic self all the time is a very important part of telling your story. And they are not just investing in your story, they are investing in you, in your dream, in your vision, in what you have seen, in what you're going to do that's going to change the world. So these are some of the things that we need to put in mind when thinking about the story that you want to put across. So how do we craft our narrative? Everything comes in a structured form, and having a structure just makes it easier for you, so that when you're going about it, you know where you want, put a bit more in, where you want to be softer. So let's go through it, because I've written a few things down. So now, what's your aha moment? When we talk about the aha moment, I'm sure we might have heard the word. And as the aha says, is that moment when that light bulb moment, when you actually get that big idea, Now, at idea stage, what has brought the idea? For some people, you realize that your aha moment comes at the most random of times. I've shared before with some of my people that some of my best ideas come maybe in the shower. And that's when you don't have a pen or a paper. But interestingly, I know there's someone who's created like a pad that you can use in the bathroom with a writing material, which is actually probably waterproof. I haven't got it yet, but I'll look out for it and probably buy it one of these days. But your aha moment comes to you when that idea has come, right? So you're telling people, oh, maybe I'll use an example. Since I've been 10, I realized that when I was a young child, we all use maybe like body creams or lotions, which are usually in a tubular form or something, comes in a tube. And one thing that actually is very irksome is the fact that you never really get to finish it, because you find that when you use probably half or 3/4, there's always a whole lot of it left inside, right? You've been doing this and using creams since you were 10, you were 15, you were 21, and then suddenly at 22, it occurs to you that, okay, possibly it's the fact that the tube or the container is in doesn't work. Then it comes to you, why? It's the shape. Perhaps if I made a bottle with a different shape. So you've gotten your aha moment, right? So imagine you're sitting there and somebody says, oh, okay, for me, that's already interesting because I think almost everybody here uses some form of lotion or cream. So you've already gotten their attention. Okay, what's coming in with that? Now, the problem is I buy, maybe my creams cost me 5,000 for the lotion bottle, and I'm using only 3,000 of it. I'm realizing that I'm wasting resources, I'm wasting the money, I'm not getting the best for my money, right? So you say it. For the longest time, I've been looking at this, and then I started thinking, if I open my bottle at the beginning and pour it into another bottle or another, something, your journey is what has brought you to the conclusion that there's a solution to this problem that's probably been there forever. Now, what's your business going to do? You're going to answer to that challenge because you've realized that somewhere in Japan or somewhere in Rwanda, let's come back to Africa, there's somebody who's found a way to create a twisted bottle or something else which will give you, or a new form of a twisted tube, or something has happened, but you have a solution. Now, what's your vision? My vision is that for the future, when mothers go to buy creams, when people go to buy things, they found this new solution and they've seen that for the next few years, you can save money on it. Creams become cheaper. There's more access to it. You can have more for less, buy one, get one free in one bottle, so many things. The whole point is that while you are showing them the value they're going to get from what your solution is bringing, they are interested because you've told them. Right? So we structure our story, we get the right structure, we know what they want to hear, we know what we're saying. And in all truthfulness, it's something that's been on your mind for so long that you have to find a solution and you want to share it with the world. So this is it. So hook, your challenge, your journey, your solution, and the vision you have for the future. So we take it in steps. If you can do that, yes, at the beginning, sometimes you find that maybe your hook is so long because you had that, you compress. You put it into one line that just says what it is, right? The same thing with every single structure. So you know where you're going with it. Okay? I hope we're following. Sometimes it's difficult when we're speaking to ourselves to know if we're understanding.
We're following, I think. Well done.
So in storytelling, like I mentioned, there are two things that are very important. I started with the point of being like, it's an emotional part. You want people to resonate with what you're saying, right? So that's what, and really in everything we do, realize that, like I mentioned, your emotional part always is that one that rings the bell, strikes a chord, gets to your audience. I tell people sometimes that I run away from LinkedIn. Why? Because when you go onto LinkedIn, that's your best bet of learning anything you want to learn in terms of stories. You open and then you see somebody has said, over the past 12 years, I've done this. Already, you've gotten into it. Like they've caught your attention already. You might think, oh, I have 5 minutes. This is how we all tend to stay on social media for like how long? It's that emotional storytelling that gets us, because we're human, right? And as a human, you want to know that the other person understands or is coming from the same place. And sometimes you find that the why behind your success is something that another person has. The difference is that you have taken that step to make it happen. You've taken that step to do something about the same problem that people have had for so many years, but you are able to find a solution to the problem. So in emotional storytelling, you listen, you think about it as a person. Why will this solution work for anyone else? So you already know that. When we think about empathy, it means you stand in the other person's shoes, right? So you're doing something, but you need to think about the other people on the other side, that do they understand where you're coming from? Does it resonate with anybody else? This thing I'm doing, who is it going to help? How are people going to gain anything from it? So your audience has to care, because if they don't care, they're going to switch off in about a minute. Like, yes, I'm talking to them, but if they don't really understand what's happening, why are they going to listen to what I'm saying? So that emotional storytelling is about the why behind your business. Why have you come to this point? What has it done for you? Is it something that's affecting your community? Is it something that, is it a social impact kind of thing? Or is it something that has been long-standing and is going to change the world for better? Is it something that is localized because there's already a solution, but you found that this solution within that solution is going to even make things better for everyone? There has to be something behind it. And as I said, it's your story, it's your passion, it's your drive, it's you driving that. So you have to really think about why you're doing it. Sometimes you'd have something, but then when you think about it really deep, you haven't yet realized why people should understand it. So you need to ask sometimes, you need to talk to people, have a trusted group of people that you can speak to, and then, brainstorm sometimes, and it will help you get to that exact point you want to. Because as I always say, perspectives are valid. Everyone's perspective is valid, but it doesn't mean that it's right for somebody else or they would actually understand. Okay? And now there should be a balance. There's emotions, yes. But if you listen to even our other speakers, they'll tell you that I want to invest because at the end of the day, I'm trying to make money as well. So there has to be something. So it's not just stories that touch, right? You want to tell them that story, oh, this is it, I've heard this has happened. But at the end of the day, as an investor, what is it going to do for me? And that's where your data comes in. I think it was Amaju or Kike who was saying it, that even when they started, yes, they started with an Excel sheet and all that. But a lot of the times when you're talking to investors, 5 years in, 10 years in, and that's what you need to remember, that in building a business, you start from one point. Maybe family and friends will set you up with the first, maybe $10,000 you might need or something less. But then you realize that when you get to a certain stage, you need to input more money. And then so investment readiness is something that is ongoing. You just don't get one investment and you stop. Maybe you're lucky and you make a lot of money, you can, reinvest. But sometimes when you want to blow, as we say, you have to get more money to, do that. And that's where the data part always comes in. The how and the what, the statistics, the market research, the financial projections that are going to validate your narrative. And how do you get that? You've researched, you've done it, But that person sitting behind is going to be thinking, okay, really, I want to know how I personally. So when we talk about that, you're not necessarily at this point going to put in everything that you put on your pitch deck. Those are the things that all the other data is going to go on the pitch deck, because the person will have time when they're really interested to go through. But when you're telling your story, you bring out the real important ones, the top of mind, the ones that everybody wants to hear real quick. Okay, I've realized that, 1% of the 1% need this, and that 1% will, if I invest in 20% of the local community, I know that I'm going to get 100,000 back, and then you can get your money back within maybe 2 to 3 years. Those very important numbers, they're always the ones that are top of line that the person wants to hear. So in sharing that, the whole point is to make sure that the emotion and the data, they match. Again, when you're doing it, you need to keep going over your story. You write it, you listen to it. Okay, maybe I can take out this part. You take it out and you keep compress. Compress is always the word. You keep compressing it to get that storyline that it's not too long, it's not too short, but it hits the spot for the investors and people who are going to listen to you.
Apologies, we only have about 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem. Let's move quickly. So I had a case study of Jumia, and I use Jumia because I think it's a household name now. We all know about that. Jumia came into the business saying that we're the Amazon of Africa. Again, remember that Amazon already exists and everybody knows what Amazon does. But for them in Africa, it's kind of difficult. Not everybody has the chance to order from Amazon and get it here. So what were they looking at? They wanted the convenience for African consumers to be able to shop online, the ease of marketing for them to be able to stay in their houses and get things within a week, within a shorter period, than ordering it from maybe America or having to have a friend bring it when you order it, right? So they'll tell you that story. And of course, for any single person, if I can get it here, why do I want to go get it somewhere else or take too much time? And then in data, you find that now Jumia publishes reports on e-commerce growth all the time. They'll tell you when we started, it was around 1.5 of total retail, but now we've jumped to 15%. Okay, 80% of our consumers, 80% of our people are local SMEs, and they're selling their businesses for them. And also, they've been able to increase labor. They're big hires of labor around. They bring in people to work for them. So this is Jumia telling you what they do and doing that. So I'm sure we could share some of these other case studies later to help. So to cut it short, at the beginning, we mentioned the elevator pitch. So yes, storytelling is important, but if within the first minute you don't get your people to understand what's going on, they can't listen to you, then it's a waste of your time. And an elevator pitch, as it says, is about how long does it take you in an elevator to get from one floor to the other? About a minute. So you don't know where you meet your investors. And I say this to people. You never know who is going to be the person who's going to listen to your story and like it or want it. Sometimes we go to events where we network. Elevator pitches are really good at networking events because you have just 1 minute or two to go from one person to the other. So what it is storytelling for funding, but it's time related. You need to have that pitch, which is why I mentioned that you compress. So when you have the story, tell it to somebody who is close to you. Listen to how you sound, listen to what you're saying. In an elevator pitch as well, you're always doing that in places where you're meeting people. So please be prepared. Dress the way you want to be addressed. Look your best. Have a smile on your face, no matter how long it's taking you to get here or how long it's going to take you, but you are just going to share the essence of your business and your presentation in a matter of 1 to 2 minutes. And that's all you need to just capture the investors' attention, because note, most of the investors are people who are very busy. They're people who talk to people every day, and I'm sure almost everybody wants to get some form of investment from them, right? So 5 things that you should have in your elevator pitch: your product name and industry, your business name, your product name, whatever it is, something that resonates, that they would know, your brand, the problem you aim to solve. I'm here because this has happened for so long, and I finally found that this is the only way we can move about or do something with it. Your proposed solution. What's the benefit of your solution, and your value proposition as well, your unique selling proposition. So this is what we're speaking about. Everything needs to come together, and you just need to practice. With every single storytelling, you need to practice. You need to listen to yourself. You need to listen. Now it's so easy. Sit down, have a video of yourself, take a video, watch it, see what you can change. Look at me now with gesticulating. Watch yourself. See what you can stop, see what you want to put, what you want to remove. Get people to listen. And then, your friends or whoever is with you, somebody you trust, not somebody who will give you good feedback and tell you what you need to do and what. But it's time. So remember clarity and passion. Remove the jargon. Sometimes we hear all kinds of things these days and you want to put them in. Remove the jargons and then go ahead with just the main thing that you want to hear, the main thing that you think your investors will want to hear. Am I still doing good on time? 1 second, 30 seconds left. How long do we have, please?
Like 30 seconds, and then we'll take a question.
Yeah.
All right. So I have practical exercises that, we can use. I've written them here. You can story map, and then you can have your stories, like I said. So unfortunately, we're running out of time. I really hope you've been able to take something from this. And, I am always open to questions. You can always pass them through Apollo Global, and I can always assist when necessary. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, you have a great story. Go tell your story, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Effie.
so much.
Amazing. And we'll share the slides. Go
All
on.
right.
All right, thank you so much. I just want to read something very quickly before I speak to, I think we'll take one question, Ms. Yoma, one question, right? Going back to the storytelling, there is a saying that is said about Africa, especially with our ability to tell stories. And it says, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. So I think when it comes to our ability to tell stories, we need to be in a place where Africans know how to tell their stories. So whether it is your brand or it is you in the film industry, Africans have to get to a point in time where African stories are told by Africans. So Ify, thank you so much for your session. I'm very encouraged by that. And I hope that everybody else who is watching or listening in also shares the same kind of narrative. I went through some of the attendees that are here, and I see that we've got people from all over Africa. It's not just Nigeria. I saw a few people from Swaziland, a few of my home people from South Africa. which is nice. So thank you so much for that again, Ife. Do we have any questions? I'll take one question for Ife. Do we have any questions? Just one question.
None yet in the chat, Inam, but I think, it'll be time for our amazing partners, SME Mall, to.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I also just want to announce very quickly before I welcome them to the front, SME Mall. This is our main partner. And of course, I think the inclusivity and one of the reasons why they are a partner is because we share the same values as growth enablers. SME Mall is literally your one-stop shop to providing you with needs for business services, financial security, business health check tools, mentorship programs, and of course, everything that a business startup or an entrepreneur would need. So we want to just give them our appreciation and our heartfelt thanks for coming on board as a partner. I will welcome the COO for SME Malls, Mr. Fisayo Babatunde, to come in and just say a few things, and of course also mention the YouTube link that they want to share to all attendees this afternoon. So Mr. Fisayo Babatunde, you are welcome.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. So I think I'll say blessed am I among women.
Finally, man.
Blessed am I among women. So I mean, it's been a great session. It's been great, and I think for participants on the call, you don't get this often where you have both perspectives. You have the investor, and you have people who have raised money from investors and who are actively raising money, and then you have somebody in the mix who's telling you how to go about having conversations with those investors. I've taken away a lot. One key thing that struck me on the conversation when Kike and Amma was speaking, the statement 1% of a high value business is better than 100% of a low performing one. That in itself, I think as Nigerians, Africans, whatever the case may be, we have this subconscious need to want to own. But the truth of it is, when it comes to running a business, you'll get to a point where the best thing I can just do for your business is let go a little bit to allow different perspectives, get funding from an investor. You have situations where the conversations with your investor will be around the fact that if they're giving you money, they also want to have oversight of your finances, or you get an investor that already has existing distribution channels across Nigeria. What that translates to for you is instant scale, because if what you had access to before was just one shop, through that investor's existing network, you have access to hundreds, thousands, even. So that's one thing. And then definitely you have to do the work to determine at what point your business is ready to take on investments, because a lot of us jump into that pool prematurely. And like Kiki and Amma mentioned earlier, they raise the friends and family round first. Now, the idea behind that is, I should just put this disclaimer on there, like out there. Getting money from an investor, there's this mentality that is like a freebie. It is in no way a freebie. What it means is you've signed up to work for people. An investor putting in money into your business is expecting returns on their investments. So you will have calls from investors at all hours. You will have some investors show up at your business and say they're doing spot checks. You would have investors call you to meetings in the middle of the night and say, I want to know what's going on with your business. And you have a responsibility to justify your actions and all of that to them, because they are investors. They give you their money. They trusted you with their money to work. So I think conversations like this are important. And the idea is for you to ascertain that you are loan ready. you are investment ready, or you are even bankable as an entity, because there are situations where people invest based on the individual. There are situations where people invest based on the readiness of the business itself. You'd see publications out there of somebody raised $10 million, $20 million. It wasn't magic. They did the work. That is why they're able to get that level of funding. And what that translates to is whoever it is that's giving them that money has taken their time to profile that business. And they know that, okay, injection of $10 million into this particular business will not be a shock. The business can accommodate that kind of capital injection and 5x, 10x, potentially 20x to the point where they exit the business. Now, and there's maybe parting thoughts, right? The truth about running a business, running a startup is if there's already a sorted business model, or if it had already been figured out, you really would not have a business. But doing the work day in, day out to identify at what point your product or your business fulfills the need of a market, the concept of product market fit is really the job you signed up for as a founder, an entrepreneur, business owner. Your goal is chasing product market fit. When you've got product market fits, then you can look at, okay, well, chasing break-even points at which the money we're spending is equal to the money that we're making. And then next layer, profitability, scaling, and all of that. So I think I'll thank Isioma and the team for considering us worthy to do this with them. And we at the SME Mall, we're basically a one-stop shop for business support services. So one of the things that we also do is support SMEs on their journey to raising funding. So that's why this was appealing to us. That, okay, let's do this with them and try to give back as well. So thank you for joining the session, and I'll cede the floor.
Thank you, Fikayo. Truly blessed are you amongst women. So Inam, over to you. I think we've come to the end. Go on.
Yes. So again, that was the COO of SME Mall, Mr. Fikayo Babatunde. Thank you so much for your commitment and your belief in what Apollo Global is doing. We do hope that our partnership will just intensify and get stronger from here to all the other events that are not just women inclusive, but male inclusive, youth inclusive as well. I'd just like to, before we do the closing remarks, I'll welcome Ms. Isioma to come and do that. But before we do that, please, I would love for us to try and do it. Photo optics. I think there's a way in which Esther is going to help us do that, where we have all the speakers show their pretty faces and we just try and take very quick picture. And then from there, I will welcome Isioma to come and take the closing remarks. And then we close this session for today. Any other announcements of some other upcoming events, Isioma will do that. So Esther, if you can just assist us with the photo optics and how you want us to do it, let's do that. And then Isioma will come in right after. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Inam. Can we put on our video and change the, sorry? Just the speakers. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm not sure that we can do everyone. Emmanuel, you need to change the. Can we do this quickly, please? Cargo Plus ladies still here. Doesn't look like. Kike, Ujama. Okay, I know they had another commitment. So, Emmanuel, you can do this really quick. Done? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, our amazing speakers, Ivana, Efe, Ujama, and Kike. I know they've had to run off for another call. Thank you, our gracious host, Ngozi. Thank you for everyone who's joined from all your different places. We will send the slides. We have everybody's email addresses. We'll send the various slides. We're open to questions. Apollo.global. And for the LSCTF Workspace Initiative, where we're handing out free vouchers, we put up the email address there as well. If you're interested or you want to indicate interest, it's ikoyi@apollo.global. But for all the other questions, happy to take them at hello@apollo.global. I think Esther's put them in the chat. We wish you all the very best on your journey. We will be communicating other programs in partnership with SME Mall and a lot of other people to bring you everything that you deserve to unlock your funding, to grow your business, to scale, and to just be the superstars and next titans that we want you to be. Thank you, everyone. We're over time, and enjoy the rest of your day, and God bless. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Yeah.